Alright, so the other day I went to listen to a song from an album that I really liked that was an independent album I found on Apple Music a couple of months ago. When I went to play this song, it was grayed out inexplicably on Apple Music. Upon further inspection, the album was completely delisted from Apple Music. The album is also delisted on Spotify. I tried to look up this artist on Google and all I could find was a website with no information except how to get the album on Spotify and Apple Music. And it's delisted on both of those. It's not on YouTube, never had a physical release. This artist, which they're called Local Motion, there is zero contact information I could find about them other than their label, if that even is what the label is, since it's a little weird. So, for all intents and purposes, this album is lost. And this got me thinking, if this could happen to any album which never got a physical release, who's next? And the key term there is never got a physical release. Now, it's 2026, and most people stream everything from movies to music to books to some people stream video games for some reason. And these methods of consuming content, you don't own anything. And when dealing with this delisted album, that was more apparent than ever at the fact that there was never a CD made, never a record made, and there's no physical way to listen to this album. Now, will they put it back up eventually under a new record label or something along those lines? Who knows? That's the thing. Who knows? Because the artist has no social media and no other ways to contact them, so yeah, there's no way that I or anyone else can figure out if this album will ever be put back on streaming services. And as I hinted, music isn't the only medium that this could happen in. YouTube is one of the biggest sources of lost media, in my opinion, at least. Biggest case in point is that YouTube, for years, dating back to the late 2000s, early 2010s, had a series called YouTube Rewind, where they would look back at some important trends and videos of YouTube from that year. Now, they bombed hard in 2018, and 2019 was the last year that YouTube ever made a rewind. But they've been available for years, until now. As of the end of 2025, every YouTube Rewind was delisted from the platform. However, it was still up if you had the link. You just had to have the link. But as of January 2026, the videos are gone, exterminated from YouTube, and unless you have an archive, which I'm sure will be on the internet at some point, they're gone forever. Thing is here, this is YouTube Rewind, literally made by YouTube. Of course people have archived it. But for the things that weren't archived, who knows? For all you know, I could take this video down in 5 years' time and no one will have ever archived it and it'll become lost media. Lost media in itself isn't a new concept. It's been around since the dawn of media. But with this digital age, it's so much more difficult because digital copies are much easier to destroy than physical ones. Things like home movies and what people have burned to DVDs, that I don't really think counts. But big productions and things that loads of people have seen could one day become lost media in an instant. Online racing game The Crew came out in December 2014, published by Ubisoft. And it was an online game. That's the big term here because there was no offline mode. This would be fine if the servers would stay forever, but of course they won't. 10 years later, in March of 2024, Ubisoft shut down the servers from the game, effectively killing it. And to add insult to injury, they took the digital copy away from users' digital libraries and made physical copies of the game unplayable. This, in a way, is a different kind of lost media because the game could exist, but because of these servers, it doesn't. And This is what I would call a digital disappearance, because without the internet, it doesn't exist. Without a digital version, this physical thing is gone. Now, the crew is far from the only game to have been affected by things like this. I would say the most digital disappearances happen in the video game landscape, because starting around 20 years ago, when the HD consoles started coming out, online gaming really came into fruition. Most games on the PS3 or Xbox 360 had some form of online mode, and even a lot of Wii games, but that was not as common. In most cases, these online modes are completely unplayable now due to servers, and going through the PS3 generation into the PS4 generation, and especially the PS5 generation, there are so many online-only games that depend on an internet connection that you cannot even play unless you have an internet connection. There are a bunch of games on the Nintendo Switch, which, yes, they do have a physical card, but they require a full internet download. And some cases, it's not even a download, it is streaming the game. Those games will one day be unplayable even if you own a physical copy of it. I could list off so many examples of games that will forever be online only because devs are too lazy to make a single player mode, even if it's a mostly single player game. As I mentioned before, Gran Turismo 7 is, you can avoid the online mode entirely if you want to, which I've done. I've really only played single player, and yet if there's no internet, there's no game. Something near and dear to my heart is the Fast and Furious mobile games from the early and mid 2010s. I specifically remember the Fast and Furious 6 one, which I think was just called Fast and Furious 6 the game, and there was one based on Furious 7 called Fast and Furious Legacy. Now, I sunk hours into these games when I was younger, and potentially money, I'm not sure, I don't remember, but point is, I really enjoyed those games. And recently, I got my original iPad Air back from when I was a child. And when I went to get these games again to play them, they won't open. You can download the file, you can download the app from the App Store, but when you go to open them, it won't connect to the server. Again, the servers were taken down, and these games are completely unplayable. Everyone knows Fortnite. And the way that game works is that every couple months they have a new season, and the game is completely updated, everything is refreshed, the graphics, the modes, the map, the weapons, everything. Yes, you keep your skins, which are things you paid for, of course, but the entire game fundamentally can be different. That's a little upsetting because the game is almost 10 years old now, and the game that once existed in 2017 doesn't really exist anymore, does it? They do have an OG game mode, which is supposed to let you relive old seasons, but with the way that it cycles, right now you can't play a version from 2017, only from 2019. And it's kind of annoying not being able to play a game that once existed. This goes for really any live service game, such as Apex Legends, or Roblox, or Call of Duty Warzone, or Rocket League, which that one doesn't change as much, but you get the point. Everything I've mentioned so far is entirely preventable. There are 100% ways that companies can stop lost media like this from happening. Whether it be keep the servers for ever or a very long period of time, or create offline versions, or something along those lines, it's preventable. There's kind of another category of this where things that are tied to these online things are then taken away. One important one, in my opinion, is PlayStation trophies and Xbox achievements if you're on that side, but we all know which one's better. Jokes aside though, any game achievements tied to online games will one day never be obtainable. I have countless examples in my PlayStation account of games that I once even owned or played at one point in time where I can't get all of the trophies for them. Off the top of my head, I remember recently wanting to play MotorStorm Apocalypse and noting that there were plenty of trophies relating to just simply playing the online mode. Drive Club, a 2014 PS4 game, has a similar thing where there are plenty of trophies relating to the game's club system, literally in the name, which are completely inaccessible because the servers have been shut down. Gran Turismo 7, a 2022 game, while the servers are up now, inevitably when they aren't, all of the online related trophies from that game will no longer be obtainable. And for that matter, the entire game will be unplayable because in its current state, it is 100% online, which I found out when my Wi-Fi went out and I could not play a majority offline game. One thing that's been a little fascinating to me, which I thought about the other day, is physical items not existing to enable digital things. You may not be able to think of anything when I say that, however, I got one word for you. Skylanders. And not just Skylanders, also Amiibo and Disney Infinity and Lego Dimensions and really any Toys to Life game that existed in the mid-2010s. All of those Toys to Life games have some form of a physical toy that unlocks something in a game, whether it be the characters needed to play the game or just little bonuses. Without the physical things, you cannot unlock parts of a game. Skylanders is completely unplayable with the figures, and I'm not saying that the figures are going anywhere, but they aren't easily obtainable. So if you aren't willing to shell out however much they are on eBay, I can't imagine they're very much, you cannot play the game. And things like Amiibo unlocked costumes and whatnot in various games. So off the top of my head, I can think of Mario Kart 8, where when you scan Amiibo, you get little costumes for your Miis. But if you can't get the Amiibo, you can't get the costumes. These files exist in the game's code, and at the core level, they're accessible at any time, but Nintendo chose to lock them behind these figures, which, yes, made sense back then. But if you can't get these figures now, then what are you to do? And it's not just Mario Kart 8, it's also Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, so that was relevant for quite a while longer. This is a little known game called Anki Overdrive, and it's kind of the opposite of what I've been talking about. So instead of a physical object unlocking something in a game, this is a game unlocking a physical object. The core concept was that you had a game on your iPad or iPhone or Android device, I guess, that controlled these little RC cars along a track, and you controlled one of them and a computer controlled the other 1, 2, however many you wanted to go against. It was honestly a really cool idea, albeit a little bit difficult to set up, but it didn't last that long. The game was removed from the App Store, and now you literally cannot use the cars or the track. If you couldn't tell, I own the game, but I don't have the digital game on my iPad. You cannot re-download it, and if you really wanted it now, there seems to be a paid app, which I'm not sure if it's legit or not, but there's something, I don't know. But you shouldn't have to pay again for something you paid for nearly 10 years ago now. It's quite a shame, honestly. I really liked this game. Another thing that's slightly less important but still relevant is the inevitable disappearance of operating systems. This is a little more niche, but things like iOS versions are not something you can go back to easily. If you want to, say, use an older iOS version on your current phone, then you're out of luck. Even if it existed at one point, you cannot go back. That's why iPhones on older iOS versions are so much more valuable, because they're not common that people wouldn't update their phones. Windows 10 changed drastically throughout the 6 years that it was currently supported, and it wasn't for the better in my opinion. But if I wanted to go back and use those older versions, then you're out of luck. And even Windows 11 today, by default, it requires internet to be set up because it requires a Microsoft account. Some people don't want to do that, but the issue will be in the future when computers don't support newer versions and are left completely unusable. Windows 7 is functionally in no way tied to the internet. You can set that up on a PC, no problem, no Microsoft account even asked for, and you can get right to using your computer. Of course, that's hard today, but in the future, you won't be able to set up Windows 11 if you don't have a Wi-Fi connection. Older devices tend to not support newer Wi-Fi networks, which is why that's an issue. All of these things have been pushing me towards physical media so much more lately, and if not physical, offline. Things like iPods inherently require no internet connection. Yes, it is mostly easy to get music off the internet, but if you have a CD collection or no ways to digitize cassettes or records, then you can get all your music onto this little square and never need the internet again. And for that matter, you can literally just use CDs or records and listen to your music without touching the internet. And these forms of music can't be taken away from you. Recently, I got a couple of 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays of my favorite movies because movie streaming services take them off their platforms all the time. Whiplash is my favorite movie, and when I wanted to watch it for the first time, it wasn't available on literally any streaming service. Even though I pay for many of them, I couldn't watch it. The only way that I watched it was that my friend owned it on Apple TV, and I was then able to watch it. Yes, right now, it is on Netflix, but I would bet that if you're watching this video a year from now, it might not be on Netflix. Who knows? Stuff like that led me to buy the 4K Blu-ray because not only is it way better quality, it looked amazing, they can't take that from me. I will have that disc forever, and I can watch it whenever I want. I have burned DVDs of many of my home video projects that I've made with my friends because I don't want those to be lost either. If something were to happen to the digital files, even though I have plenty of backups made, they would be gone, and I'm trying to prevent that personally. It really is such a shame that people are choosing convenience over actual practicality nowadays, because with streaming, you own nothing, and not many people really realize that. I tend to be a very sentimental person. I enjoy looking back at things that remind me of old times, and not being able to have that will be really upsetting in the future. I have an extensive library of Wii games and Wii U games that I grew up with as a child, and I will one day show my children those games. Those cannot be taken away from me. But kids nowadays that are potentially growing up with digital-only Xbox Series X's or PS5s without the disc drive, if those stores shut down for whatever reason, if they so much as forget their login info, it's all gone. It's really important going into 2026 to be mindful of what you own and what you don't. If you really love something like a movie or an album or a book or a show or anything along those lines, please try to obtain a physical version of it. In some cases, it can be very expensive, don't get me wrong. TV shows especially, if you want a Blu-ray of the entire Office, which is something I looked at, those are over $100. That's a lot. But that can't be taken from you. And I personally think that that's really important. Now keep in mind, this video is not me saying that the internet is bad. The internet is a great thing. It's so awesome being able to play video games with my friends, even if they live 10 minutes away or 10 hours away, anything like that. It's really awesome. And being able to share videos like this with all of you is also pretty awesome. Music is inherently much easier to get out to people. That album that I spoke about that isn't accessible anymore, it was at one point, and I would have never heard about it if it weren't for streaming. So it's not all bad. It's just unfortunate that the companies that provide us with these services are so greedy and don't really care for the future preservation of their own things. And with that, that's going to wrap up this little video essay. I hope you liked this new style of video. I enjoyed making this. I wanted to make videos like this for quite a while. What do you think of the 4:3 aspect ratio? Let me know in the comments. I find it more fun. Oh, and I got a new microphone and a new chair. So those are things for me that make this stuff better, and hopefully the mic sounds good for you. But that's going to be all from me. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please subscribe, hit the like button. I'll try to upload more. Can't promise anything, but yeah. See you in the next video. Maui, what are you doing? You just wake up?